Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about your faith journey growing up?
Yeah, so my name is Muhammad. I was born Muslim. Uh, just my earliest memories are like just Islam, and for the longest part of my life, I've been Muslim, or I was Muslim. Um, my parents my dad was making Hajj, and I was born like in Cairo, Egypt, and so like everything at the beginning of my life was just all very like 5 times a day prayer, Muslim. That's what's gonna happen. Um, but my parents got divorced, and it's really important to sort of set up the context for how I was receiving and how I was practicing my faith, because I was getting it in two different ways. And so on two different ends of the spectrum, my mom, we were very poor, we were homeless, and just survive. We'll,
Yeah.
we'll pray, just survive.
Right.
And then on my dad's side, it was like extremists. You're wearing a turban, you're wearing a camise, get your combat boots, don't talk to these people, don't hang out with those people, don't, like, we're not gonna associate with anybody except for Muslims.
Wow.
So there's just two opposite ends of the spectrum. So like when we say, everybody's experience is a little bit different, even me coming up and talking today as not necessarily a representative or anything, but this is a very, very
Sure.
specific situation. But then, like, being with my mom and sort of being raised by my mom in a more relaxed version of Islam, we still prayed, we still tried to follow the 5 pillars of Islam, but I think it was around maybe, I was like 15 years old, and we were living in the city, but going to school in the county. And so me trying to be as responsible as possible, I'm like urging my brother and my sister, like, hey, we need to come back and we need to get to Juma. We need to get to the mosque as quickly as possible. It's Friday, we need to get there. And we went this one time, and the imam started aggressively yelling at us because our pants were too long and you couldn't see our ankles when we were like standing next to everybody else to for prayer. And I think in me it was, we're trying so hard right now to get here. It's freezing. We're on the bus. We're waiting like an hour to get on the bus to come all the way back in here. Transfers, chasing a bus just to get down here, and now you're yelling at us. So we're kind of done.
Yeah.
We're not coming back. And from then until, college, I was still sort of just living and just doing whatever. But then in college, I started studying philosophy, which led me to taking a Christianity class. And when I was taking that class, it just struck up, some curiosity, and some friends of mine invited me to come to their church out in the county. And so I started attending regularly, just to see what everything was about. So it'd be like, once a month, once every now and then, I would attend. And then whenever I traveled, I would try to go to a church. And so I traveled to China, went to church.
Wow.
Traveled to Brazil, went to church. I lived in Hawaii for a year, was going to church every now and then.
Wow.
And so continuously trying to just feel that need to learn more.
Wow.
And then I met Ruth, love of my life.
Yeah.
And she had a very strong connection to Christianity and to her faith. And we knew we wanted to raise our kids as Christians. And around that same time, the person that married us, a leader in another church, he had mentioned to me, we were just in our conversation, he had mentioned, I think it's Mark 6:23, I believe, just help me with my non-belief. Right. And that was sort of like a light bulb to me. I trust Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm pretty cool with Jesus. Nobody knows how to talk to him. I talk to him every now and then like a homeboy. What's up, Jesus? How's it going? But that sort of freed me up to be okay with the things that I couldn't, that weren't gelling for me.
Sure.
But I did have a strong sense of belief, and so that pulled me closer to Jesus. And then from then on, it was, I'm Christian. I feel Christian.
Wow.
I didn't need to do anything. I just knew that's what it was for me. Directly after that, God was showing up for me in ways when I really needed him, especially at the beginning of our marriage and when we had Miriam. There was classes that I was taking in order to become a teacher, and if I didn't pass this class, it was going to drastically change our lives. And I was failing, doing horrible in certain
Oh.
classes, and I remember sitting in the car and like God, I need some help.
Yeah.
Like I need something because I feel like I can't do this. Like
Wow.
I don't know what else to do. And like he showed up like the next week. I'm like crushing tests. Like I don't do that. But I mean he just took over and he was showing up for me. And then like in retrospect, thinking back on it, it was like wow, he brought me Ruth
Yeah.
so that I could like get better at all the things that like I needed help with. And so he just kept showing up in different ways for me, and that was it. Yeah.
Praise God. That's amazing. Amen. So what was it like for you attending a mostly white evangelical church?
Um, so it never really registered
Sure,
for me.
yeah.
Even in the Black community, I was always other because I was like again like practicing Islam like very hardcore, and then just trying to survive, and other people sort of had things, or they would talk, oh, I have this name brand stuff or whatever, and okay. But like just trying to practice and trying to be Muslim and be in the world, none of it ever registered with me that like I was different from everybody else because I had always been different,
Right.
even amongst communities where I'd still look the same as everybody else. And so as an
I think a lot of people related to that in the room.
Yeah.
I just heard that. Yeah.
As an other, like I felt comfortable.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not the same as everybody here. That's nothing new. And then in all my travels and everything, I was always very singular.
Yeah.
So I got comfortable sort of being a chameleon. Like I'm just gonna go ahead and adapt, and I'll be okay.
Right.
And so that was never a problem, and it never registered that like
Right.
everybody else is white.
Right.
And Christianity, like as I was growing up, I had only seen Muslims as black. Like everyone around me that was black was Muslim, or everyone that I got to associate with.
Right.
But then everyone, I just saw Christianity as like, oh, that's a white religion.
Okay,
That's for
sure,
white people.
sure.
If I'm going to go to church, I'm going to see white people. And then I went to church and saw white people. So it was like, kind of made sense. But it never registered at all. Goodness.
Hey, finally, yeah, you've been
Notes.
flying. You've been flying.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much the most of it.
Yeah.
Just I felt comfortable as other, and
Sure.
and it never registered. Yeah.
What led to your family pulling back from church for a time?
So we were attending pretty regularly, and we were going to a church, and between, I think, well, when I was Muslim, like I was still black, and then when I converted, I was still black, and so
Yeah.
that was always the constant.
Sure.
That was always
Yeah.
there. And so in between 2015 and 2020, when you have Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, all these other people, Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter and everything, I was looking to my church to like say something to it. Like I need you to talk to Muhammad as a black man.
Right.
Like because that's what's sort of under fire right now,
Yeah.
and it feels like I'm in danger.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to get pulled over. Like
Right.
I'm terrified for my life, and I just want church to sort of talk to me about that a little bit more. And everything that we got from church was always very shallow. It was always very surface. Goodness. It was always very, we need to have a tough conversation.
Yeah.
It's like, great, let's do that.
Yeah.
Ready for it. I'm going to show up on Sunday, and we're going to have a tough conversation, and that conversation never came.
Yeah.
And then there was one sort of like light bulb moment where we're sitting in church, and they put up like this chart of all these people that have been impacted by police brutality or victims of police brutality. And I just remember Ruthie and I sort of looking at each other like what? No, because the pastor's up there and he's like, yeah, it's a very diverse group. And we're just like, it's not diverse. Like, there's no diversity. It's all black people. So I don't know, like, it just was tone
Right.
deaf and just completely disconnected me from the church. And I'm like I really trusted you all. And I was ready for this conversation.
Yeah.
You were about to start saying something, but it just never happened with it being right there in your face. And I just sort of pulled back even more. And so
Sure.
from then on, for a good amount of years, I was going to church angry.
Yeah.
I was going to church very defensive
Sure.
and very like anytime they wouldn't even be talking about anything that was related. They wouldn't start off anything. I'm just waiting for them, like, okay, here we go again.
Sure.
Like, we're gonna have this conversation about grace, but like, what about this? You know, and so anytime we went to church, like, it just became a negative thing for me to even think about, like, Sunday's coming, and Ruthie already knows, like, are you gonna be like this again today? I know, like, and she's tried to, like, hey, like, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And let's see what happens this week. But like, she was upset too.
Right.
Because she was waiting for the conversation.
Yeah.
We have 2 black girls.
Yeah.
And we want to hear them talk to that part of us. And sort of, you know, I think we hit the pandemic and then we were like still watching virtual, but I would still go at every time we watched it with a frustration and an anger. And then being online, all the like pomp and circumstance that goes along with like a bigger church and music and everything, you get to strip all that down. And it's just you and the sermon. So like, it's just words, just talk to me. And it never hit the mark. And so we sort of pull back even more. And at a certain point, Ruthie is, you know, we're just having a conversation. It's just like, you know, with it being as tumultuous as it is for you, like, we can't just go just because it's for the girls, just because the kids ministry is really strong. Like, we have to be going for ourselves, and or we're going to do them a disservice later on. And so we sort of pulled back and sort of entered into this limbo of, we need to find a new church, and we need to go somewhere else. And so we just pulled back from going.
Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah.
So how did you end up at Horizon in the midst of like this hiatus from church?
So we like meeting you at the park.
We live in the same neighborhood.
Yeah,
we should say this.
we're like 2 blocks over. So yeah.
Let me say one caveat. I've never been more nervous about somebody coming to church than Mom, because like I like them so much from the park. And it's one thing if like you invite your neighbor to church and they don't like the pastor, you're like, okay, that's fine. If they don't come to church and they don't like the pastor, I'm like, that's very personal. Like,
then we don't go to the park anymore.
Like, what if he's weird around me? I remember saying this to Kira. Like, what if he's weird around me? He doesn't like it. He can't tell me that. I was so nervous. And I was like, but like, what can you do? Like, hey, greeters, greet harder. Hey, worship team, like, we are who we are. We're gonna be what we are. You know?
So, and then on top of that, we come like, well, we came to church. Goodness, we met him in the park, and then he invited us, and later on, and we went to a block party before. It was like Saturday. We went to a block party, and it was like, oh, this is cool. This is by the church. Like, I don't feel like nobody's like telling me I need to like read the Bible right now or something like that. And it's just a block party. And that Saturday we went to a block party. That Sunday we went to church. Or we came to church.
Yeah.
And so we're here, and we sat like 3 rows back, and Ryan is just like the whole time. Like, he would walk over here for a little bit, but then he would come back, and we're like, he's doing it again. Ruthie, he's doing it again. He's staring right. He's like, I can feel it going through the chair. But it didn't scare us off. It didn't scare us off. He was still really cool after the sermon. And goodness. But we just kept coming after that. There was a lot of connection to the the community, and like we had started seeing the overlap between our, you know, just everyday and church. And like my Ruthie would see Ashley Francis at the park and be like, I went to school with her. And it's like, okay. And then I would see Josiah, and it's like, I just trained you in a physical education training. Oh my goodness. And just that overlap was like, it's more and more comfortable. And then the girls having overlap with like kids that they would see downstairs and kids they would go to school with. It started to gel the right way. And so it does gel the right way.
That's awesome. And what's kept you coming?
Well, that overlap, definitely. But also the commitment of the church to the community. To continue to do events, to continue to lean into events, not as ways to like, you know, hey everybody, we're all gonna stop and like, and let's all read from the Bible together. It's just, we're living life together. And that was always something that I've wanted, is just to have those roots and to be connected to a church that's gonna wanna be connected to me, not just at church, you know, just to be out here and be living life together. But also the accessibility of leadership of everybody and the trust that is built there. That was something that we lost at the other churches, that I didn't trust what was being said. And So it's sort of like reading between the lines. Like you're not saying a whole lot right now, and I need you to. Meanwhile, there's a slide before this one that is him talking about white privilege. I'm like, okay, yeah, made the right decision. But just that connection, and then I think lastly, it's just that the degree of value that I feel when I come to church, and when I get asked to like be a part of a team to help do something, or hey, can you help us like set up the bounty house or something like that? Like just the outreach that happens on a regular basis, like it makes me feel valued. That like I have an opportunity to help, not just with the things that I know, because I don't know that much, and I'm very comfortable in not knowing a lot. But Ryan and a lot of other people on the research on the leadership team do, and it develops a sense of comfort and trust between everybody at church and with us. So, yeah.
Let's give him a huge hand. Thank you so much, Mr. Move. Love you, brother.
Unless there is somebody else in the room.
Yeah, let's put this back. Thank you so much. I mean, you can hear the desire for belonging even in that, right? Like that's just so honest and so real and so much better than I could have said it. So thank you so much. And again, not your stereotypical journey. No one has a stereotypical journey, right? And I think it's important that we hear all the individual stories that bring people here. And I'm so excited that he was willing to share that with us. Thank you, Muhammed.